Okay, welcome back. So in this video, what I want to do is to review the writing process. And in particular, just going through it in detail. And then in the next video, we'll do modes of writing, the narrative, descriptive, expository, and persuasive, and get into modes, genres, and purposes. So that will be the next video. I want to talk about the writing process. I had you write about your writing process. A lot of you have very advanced writing processes, which I'm so happy to see, and that's really great that you've been, you've either learned on your own or have been taught, to kind of go through stages and don't just think whatever you put on the paper is going to work because, professional writers, nobody works like that. We all go through this very complex process. All depends on how big the writing assignment is, and that's part of reducing your anxiety, reducing your procrastination, which a lot of students talk about in my writing process, which is also a very common, it's so common. Procrastination is just how humans operate, right? We put off things that give us anxiety or are hard to do, and they don't give us much of a reward. So that's normal. And part of the way that you reduce that stress and anxiety and to help mitigate or lessen procrastination, it will still happen, but to lessen it, you want to break down the process, break it into pieces, make it more manageable so you can do it in small doses and get it done, especially big projects. Okay, and I'm going to step you through each of these two main essays that we'll do. We will break down the process. Okay, the first stage we call invention or pre-writing. That's where you're coming up with ideas. So if you've been wondering what Dr. Everson's been doing for the past week instead of preparing our classes, I've been in invention stage, very, very deeply in invention stage, because I have to come up with ideas of what am I going to produce, how am I going to get from point A to point B, and then thinking of a big project at the end, how do I lead them up to that? So it's a big step. Invention. Don't underestimate invention. At the same time, don't get stuck in invention. You have to draft. Draft is actually putting words down. And then after you draft, ideally we want to get some feedback. Now it might be self-feedback, what we call self-review. It might be a peer review where you give it to someone, another student, someone else that could be interested in your topic. It could be a professional review, editorial review is what I call it. Editorial review usually is your professor, someone who has more knowledge than you, or at least more knowledge in terms of the type of writing you're trying to produce, like an editor or professor, and to get that kind of professional editorial feedback. And then after you get the feedback, whether it's self, peer, or professional review, then you want to go into the revising and editing phase. A revising phase. Now, editing would be kind of finalizing the text for submission and publication or for a grade. Revising will be, reworking based on the feedback. When people say, I don't understand this, I don't understand your point. Professor says you need more evidence, you need clarification, this is too informal. Revising is just changing what's there. And then once you're finished with the revising, then you go into submit. Now, this all sounds like a beautiful, what we call, process that goes in line, but writing is not linear. It doesn't just go in a line like that. It is what we call recursive. That means it gets messy really fast because you go from invention to drafting, and then when you look at your draft, you say, this is a real mess. I don't like the topic. I'm going to start again. You go back to invention. You start drafting and you discover wow, this is an exam, or this is an application, or this is a letter, to get a scholarship. I have to go right from drafting to submit. That's fine. That happens. Other times, you get all the way to feedback and then you have to go back to drafting because you actually have to produce new text. You're not just revising what's there, you're adding. That's when a professor or someone says, oh, well, tell us about this, or you forgot to talk about this, or you don't have enough examples or evidence. So you have to draft, meaning create new text. And then sometimes feedback will send you right back to invention. In other words, you know what, this topic is done, it's not appropriate, or you misunderstood the assignment, or you know, this doesn't qualify, you have to go back to the drawing board. Other times revision will send you back for more feedback. Sometimes you need more than one round of feedback from your editor, from your professor. I like to try to give two, at least specific feedback to different drafts. Again, it depends on the nature of the beast, whatever you're creating, how much feedback you will need and self-feedback. And then sometimes, again, revising even after you've gone through a feedback, you revised, and then you realize, oh, I have to keep drafting, I have to keep adding on. And then other times you go right into submit and publish. So the process, even after submit and publish, you know, the publisher suddenly says, nope, you know, we got to go back and edit. You know, there's problems with this, even after you submit and publish a piece. So that gets complicated really fast, right? Even after you submit and publish an article, sometimes, or a paper, they might say, you know what, this doesn't qualify, or it's bad, or I don't think you did it, or for whatever reason you have to start over again. So just remember that the complexity of the writing process is there. What's important is to understand that it's complex, that it might not go in order that you want it to, and that you want to try to work a process that works most effectively for you, and try to get feedback. Feedback is key to the process, and just keep working it, working it, working it. Think about the recursivity. Recursivity means that it doesn't go, you know, in one order. It can go back and forth, back and forth. So that's just a review of the writing process. And then the rest of the next video, which will continue this, will get into the modes of writing.